Hello, all of my lovely friends. Today we are going to be talking about something that is very personal to me because it's mostly a personal experience, but I feel like some of you might be able to relate to this, especially if you are a younger author or younger writer. I put on my stories actually today, but by the time that this video goes up, it will have been probably at least a week. So it will be old by now, but I put up on my stories today asking how old people think that I am because I got a DM the other day of someone who was asking me how old I was, and she said that she was confused because she has always thought that I was older, but then in some of my photos I look younger, and then I happened to mention that I was on break from college, and that really threw her off because she knew that I must be young enough to be in college, but some people go back to school later in life. So she was just asking me how old I was. And so I answered her. Of course, I'm not afraid to tell you guys how old I am, but I think that I have held off on talking about my age for a long time. I do mention it sometimes, but I definitely guard it a little bit more carefully. And I also hesitate to talk about college sometimes because I think that I want people to think that I'm older. And there's a few reasons why, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video. But this video isn't just about me. Because I think that what I want to hopefully do is encourage people who are also young, because I am pretty young. So I'll just go ahead and say I'm 22, and even though I'm a little bit older now, I started my first novel when I was 12, and I did finish it. It was like 350 pages, full novel, and I finished it when I was 14. I queried it when I was 14. I started What Lies Above when I was 16. I queried that book when I was 18. I went to conferences. I talked to agents. I had an offer when I was 18. I was a very, very young writer, and I had a lot of experience when I was young. And I was on Twitter when I was young. I've had my Twitter for many years, and I used to be really active on it before I had my Instagram. But whenever I was interacting with other authors and agents and everything on social media, I would never talk about my age. And I never mentioned it in my queries. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The reasons was because I wanted to be taken seriously, and I was worried that if I told people my age in a query or on social media, people wouldn't take me as seriously because they would just think I was young or a child, and I didn't have enough experience or enough maturity. So that was one reason. Another reason was that I had a lot of friends who were older than me, and I still do. I have a lot of author friends in this community, writer friends in this community, and real life friends who are older than me. And so I was worried that when they found out that I was young, that they wouldn't want to be my friend anymore because, again, of that age difference. And so for a long time, I hesitated to talk about my age because I was ashamed of it. And that's why I'm talking about age shame, which is something that I did talk about in my stories. All right, guys, the time has come for me to reveal how old I am and to talk about age shame. And I'm really trying to channel a lot of confidence. I just talked to my sister, and she really boosted my confidence a lot because I was talking to her about a lot of my insecurities related to my age. And I think that particularly I have imposter syndrome because I'm actually a lot younger than you guys probably assume. As you can see from the last slide, a lot of you guessed that I am in my late 20s, and I'm actually 22. So some of you did get it right. Some of you are my critique partners and my real life friends, so you guys already knew. But yeah, I'm 22 years old, and I have been writing for 10 years. That is true. I started my first novel when I was 12, and I finished it when I was 14 and queried it, and then I wrote What Lies Above and queried that, and then I wrote a third novel. And so I have had a lot of experience, but I still think that I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome because I feel like I'm too young to be contributing to the community and to have these life experiences to share. And then, besides just imposter syndrome, there are two other things that I think have caused my apprehension to talk about my age as openly. The first thing is that a lot of my author friends are significantly older than me. I definitely have friends who are my age, who are younger than me, who are in their 20s, but then I have a lot of author friends who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s and older, people with families, people with kids, and I think that for a long time I was afraid that if they found out that I was younger than they assumed, that it would change the dynamic of the friendship, which is why I said in an earlier slide that no one has ever made me feel like that, and this is just something that I have felt. So no one in this community has ever made me feel left out because of my age. But I think it's something that I was just afraid of, that it would somehow change the dynamic of our friendships. And some of my dearest friends are older than me. One of the very first people that I really connected with in this community was Kim Chance, and she's married with a family, and she was always so sweet and inclusive, and I cherish our friendship. And then my second point, which is where I think the root of this all started, was whenever I was pursuing traditional publication for my first book and for What Lies Above, but particularly for What Lies Above, I was about 18 and 19 years old, and I really didn't want agents to know how old I was because I was worried that they would not take me as seriously or that they wouldn't want to represent someone who was that young. And so whenever I would go to conferences or whenever I would query them or talk to agents, I was nervous for them to find out. And so a lot of times I just would not talk about my age on social media or with agents or at conferences. And so I think that that spilled over into now because I still worry that people won't take me as seriously, I guess, or won't take my writing as seriously, which is crazy because I know a lot of authors who are around my age that are traditionally published. But again, I think this is just, I'm just sharing my thoughts and my internalization of this. So I think that that's where a lot of this came from, but I think that that has a lot to do with timelines that I've put on myself and that we've put on ourselves. And that's literally exactly what the reel that I posted today was all about. And I'm so glad that that connected to so many of you because I think like it segues so well into what I'm talking about now with timelines, because that reel was talking about you're never too young or too old to start. When a lot of times we have this timeline where we need to publish at this age or we need to pursue our dream or career at this age, and anything before that is too early and too young, and anything after that is too late and you've missed your chance. And that's not true, because a timeline just tries to dictate when you should start a dream or when you should start a career and what age. My sister is 32 years old and she has her PhD, and that's amazing. There are people in my program in college, because yes, I am still in college, and there are people in my program who are 27 and 28 and they came back to school to pursue their degree, and that is awesome. Then there are people who are graduating at 20, 19 and 20 because they went to community college or they got their associates or they did that double high school college thing, and now they're graduating at 19 and 20, and that's awesome too. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up because I know it's been long. And again, I filmed that extra part for my YouTube channel, which now I honestly think I've covered everything, so I don't even know if I need to do that anymore. But I think what I'm going to do is screen record all of these slides and then make them into one video and put it on my YouTube channel, because I really want this to be like one cohesive video to go back to, because I think that I need this reminder frequently about timelines and about age and about expectations. But I really wanted to share my heart with you guys because this is something I've struggled with for so long, and it actually makes me nervous to talk about it on here. But I know that you guys are so supportive, and I'm sure that I'm going to get messages from people in response to these stories who are probably surprised about my age, or just who want to talk about timelines. And I know that people have already been reaching out in response to my reel talking about how they felt like they're too old to publish and that they've lost their chance. So I just want to encourage them that that's not true. And if you're young, then that's not true either. But I wanted to expand on it and talk about it here in a little bit more length, but hopefully this video won't be too long. I'm hoping to keep it short. So yes, I've hesitated to talk about my age because of this age shame, and no one has ever made me feel ashamed of my age. I've never had anyone in this community tell me that I was too young to be their friend or too young to be a writer. But I do think that sometimes there's a stigma about teen writers in particular, and the majority of my writing journey has been as a teen, because again, I'm 22 now, so I haven't been a teen for a few years, but I started when I was 12, so a lot of it was in my teen years. And it was difficult because I think that I felt like there was a stigma that, again, I was too young, or not mature enough, or I didn't have enough experience, that I didn't belong, that I was an outsider. And so I think that I never lied, but I often allowed people to have the impression that I was older. And so that's why it was really interesting, because I asked you all on Instagram how old you thought that I was, and the youngest guess was 22, which is how old I actually am, and the oldest guess was 34, which is pretty old. I don't think I look 34, but that was another guess that somebody had. And so there was ages all in between. There was quite a lot of people who guessed, actually, and there was guesses of 25, 27, 29, all throughout the 20s, and then in the 30s also. And so I thought it was really interesting because people have this huge range of how old they thought I was. And for a long time, I liked that because I wanted people to take me more seriously. But what I've come to realize, and the point of this video of why I wanted to make this, was for you all, to encourage you. Because what I've come to realize is that I shouldn't be ashamed of how old I am. And again, no one has ever made me feel ashamed. It's personal shame, because I wanted to be taken seriously, and I'm worried that people won't want to be my friend, or that people won't take me as seriously when they find out that I'm young. And so I hid it for a long time. And now that I'm getting older, it's a little bit more acceptable. There's a lot of authors who are like 22, 23, 24. But it's still on the younger end, and a lot of my published author friends are in their late 20s and 30s. So what I want to encourage you with is that I've come to realize that I shouldn't feel ashamed for where I am in life and for the season that I'm in my writing career, because my debut is releasing next year. I will be 22 when it comes out. And, I shouldn't be ashamed of the experiences that I've had. I've had a lot of experiences, and I'm grateful to God for them. I've had a lot of things happen, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I've learned a lot, and I do have a lot of knowledge, which is why I have this channel and my Instagram and all of that, to share that knowledge with you all and hopefully help and encourage people. But I've had that knowledge from experiences, and so I shouldn't try to hide the fact that I started a novel when I was 12, and I shouldn't try to hide the fact that I've written 3 books already, by 22, and I shouldn't try to hide the fact that I've gone through all of these querying rounds and all of these conferences and offers and agents and all of that, and then self-publishing and all of the changes. And so whenever I say I should be proud, I don't mean in an arrogant way, but I should be proud of what God has allowed me to do in my time and in my life so far, because I don't know how much more life I'll have. Life isn't a long life, and old age isn't promised. And so I want to be more intentional about accepting it. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about it all the time and just randomly throw it out there. But I think that I'm also not going to try to purposefully shy away from it, because I am who I am, and I'm the age that I am, and I've had the experiences that I have had, and I'm grateful for them. And I hope that I can encourage other young authors, because a lot of my followers are in their late teens and early 20s. And I hope that I can encourage you all to embrace what season of life you're in, and to embrace what season of your writing journey you're in, no matter how old you are. In fact, I just posted a reel on my Instagram today, and it said, "You're never too young or too old to start." And I showed a bunch of authors and books, and how old the author was whenever the book was published. And Aragon was published when he was 19 years old. It was self-published. And Divergent was published when Veronica Roth was 22. And so there's some on the younger end. And then there's authors like J.R.R. Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, and he didn't publish until in his 40s for The Hobbit, and then when he was 62 with Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings series. And so, there's a huge range of ages. And so I want to encourage you not to be afraid and not to be ashamed if you are a younger writer, or if you're older for that matter, but specifically since I'm talking about young age, to embrace the season you're in and the season of your journey you're in, and to not be afraid to let people know that you're young, because it's an amazing thing that you have found something you're passionate about young, and you shouldn't have to hide that. So I just want to encourage you with that. And I wanted to have a little bit more time to talk about this, because obviously this is about 10 minutes, and that would have been like 1,000 little stories on Instagram. So hopefully this encouraged you, and I don't feel like I went really deep with it. So if you want to talk in the comments, leave me a comment down below. But I just wanted to encourage you, again, embrace the season you're in. Be grateful for the experiences, the knowledge, the advice you're able to give, and the wisdom that you've gotten from the experiences that you've had. I know that I'm super grateful for all of the amazing experiences that I've had, and hopefully I can use those experiences to help you guys. So that's all for today. This one was pretty short, but again, if you want to talk in the comments, let me know, or you can always talk to me over on Instagram. My Instagram and all my social media is linked in the description box. So thanks so much for hanging out with me for this little short talk, and I hope it encouraged you guys, especially if you're a young author or young writer. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye!